Hello, everyone. I'm Pablo Peñalba.
And I'm Lucas Alvarez. And today we are going to analyze a text called Cultural Behavior in Business from a critical applied linguistics point of view. But before we analyze the text, it is important to mention three details. The source of the text, what the text is about, and our target students. We took into consideration one of the subjects that Pablo delivers at bilingual school in 6th year. So the subject is called Global Perspectives. So the level of proficiency of the students is really high. Now let's move to the text, okay? First of all, we have to talk about what the text is about. Well, the text basically says that even though English is used as lingua franca in the world of business, sometimes due to cultural norms, there may be misunderstandings, there may be maybe people who get offended because of behavior. So the article, no, the text, sorry, tries to describe the cultural norms from different countries. So what is the source? Where did we get the text from? Well, we got the text from the British Council. Now, we shouldn't be naive or innocent when dealing with this kind of material, because the British Council is an organization run by the British government. And the goal of this organization is to spread British ideology and culture. Do you remember the phrase from Churchill, "The empires of the future are the empires of the mind"? Well, this is precisely what the British Council tries to do through material. Manan, in fact, says that another dimension of linguistic imperialism is the use of English for expanding economic and commercial interest of the English-speaking countries in general, and that of Britain and the USA in particular. Since 1930s, the British Council has taken lead in the promotion and expansion of the British English globally for political, geostrategic, and economic reasons. One of the key goals to promote interest is placing English in education. We should highlight it because it is through us that they want to spread their message, let's say. They want to expand their culture. So we have to be careful when we take this material to use it in our lessons. Now, let's move to the analysis of the text. We are going to analyze the text in two different dimensions. First of all, the idea of status quo, the reproduction of the status quo, and Paul is going to talk about the concept of otherness, which are connected, the status quo and the concept of otherness, to the idea of hegemony. You know that there are certain countries, more powerful countries, that control, let's say, the politics and the economics of the world. And this article describes more in detail the cultural behavior of these countries that you have here on this list. As you can see, Germany, the USA, Russia, China, Japan, all these are politically and economically powerful countries, okay? So there is a lot of details about how the people from these countries behave and how they trade, let's say. So the first thing to take into account is that there are countries which are not mentioned, which are not important for the author. For example, even inside Europe, the Scandinavian countries, the Balkan countries, they are not mentioned. And they are economically powerful, but not politically. So the author avoids speaking about them, and that is a message that he's trying to give, not explicitly, because he cannot say we don't care about these countries. That is not politically correct, but the author is doing this implicitly. And there are other countries which are mentioned in very big groups. For example, in countries like India, Argentina, and the Maldives, smiling was associated with dishonesty. Really? Do we Argentinians believe this? Do you think that Argentina, India, and the Maldives have cultural, cultural connections? I don't think so. Look at this other example. In parts of South America and Africa, prolonged eye contact could also be seen as challenging authority. In the Middle East, eye contact across genders is considered inappropriate. Well. Why did the author give a lot of details about Germany and the USA, and when talking about African countries, he just mentioned the continent, assuming that they are all the same, when Africa is one of the continents with lots of ways of living there? Well, there is an intention behind that. Manon says that ideology is one of the recurrent areas of critical language policies. It refers to unconscious beliefs and assumptions that are naturalized and thus contribute to hegemony of the dominant group, social, economic, and sometimes linguistic groups. Well, this is precisely what the text is doing, what the author is doing. He is naturalizing the idea that there are countries which are important, countries which are not so important. He doesn't care about them. So in that way, he's contributing to the hegemony of these powerful countries that we mentioned before. Okay. Well, so now Paul is going to talk about the concept of otherness.
All right. Well, about otherness, reproduction of the concept of otherness. Pennycock explains that critical applied linguistics is far more than the addition of a critical dimension to applied linguistics, but rather opens up a whole new array of questions and concerns. Issues such as identity, sexuality, access, ethics, disparity, difference, desire, or the reproduction of otherness that have hitherto not been considered as concerns related to applied linguistics. Steinsack defines otherness as the result of the discursive process by which a dominant group, US, the self, constructs one or many dominated out groups, them, other, by stigmatizing a difference, real or imagined, presented as a negation of identity and thus a motive for potential discrimination. By mentioning countries which are not powers in groups and describing them in one sentence, we may conclude that they are being relegated. The same is happening with those that are not mentioned in our article. And we can say that otherness and identity are two inseparable sides of the same coin, because the dominant group imposes the value of its identity and devalue the identity of others while imposing discriminatory measures. Then we can say about the activities included in the worksheet provided by the British Council are exclusively comprehensive. They don't foster critical thinking. For example, it says, circle the correct answer, and the second one is true or false. And we decided to add the following: a warming up or pre-reading activities, and we have a quote that says, the most potent weapon of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. So students have this question: what can you think about this quote? So this is going to be an activity that students may think about. Later, we have the following. Why do you think these are the ones? Can you mention any historical background? The top 10 most powerful countries in the world 2019. As Lucas said before, we are having students who are sitting for an international exam by the end of the year. So we presume that they have a background knowledge about these countries that we are presenting today. After this activity, we would add the following questions to make our students reflect and think. What countries are mentioned in the article? What countries are not mentioned? Why do you think they are mentioned or not? Do you agree with what is said about Argentina and Latin American countries? Why? If you don't, how do you feel about that stereotype? What other cultural norms and practices would you mention if you were the author? Our final task. Based on your previous reflections, using your own words, you're asked to write an opinion essay on the article. You should also take into account these questions. Would you have mentioned the same countries? Is it time to change our beliefs and thoughts about learning English as a second language? What is the role of the British Council in language learning? You can also base your opinion on the following article and video. So the students will have access to this article and also this, which says bilingualism and the cultural imperialism of language, right? This listening comprehension, and they will have this to create a better opinion piece. And after, we can say our conclusion is the following. Make our students raise awareness of the reproduction of discourses that are implicitly transmitted and transform society little by little to avoid situations like discrimination and inequality. For example, what we saw last week about Floyd in the States, who was killed by the police. All right, so this is all. Thanks for watching.